Hello everyone. Today I'm going to read The Secret Garden chapter 4. Martha, when she opened her eyes in the morning, it was because a young housemaid had come into the room to light the fire, was kneading in the hearth rug, raking for the cinders noisily. Mary lay and watching for a few moments, and then began to look about the room. She had never seen a room at all like it, and thought it was curious and gloomy. The wall was covered with tastefully with four-seen embers on it. There were fantastically dressed people under the tree, and in the distance there were glimpses of the terrace of the castle. There was hunters and horse and dogs and ladies. Mary felt as if she was like the forest with them. Out the deep felt as she was in the forest. Out in the deep window, she could see the great climbing stretch of land, which seems to have no trees on it, and to look rather like an endless, blue, purple sea. "What is that?" she said, pointing to the window. Martha, the young housemaid, who had just risen to her feet, looked and pointed also. "That there?" she said. "Yes, that's the moor," with a good-natured grin. "Does thou like it?" "No," answered Mary. "I hate it." "That because thou not used to it," Martha said. Going back to her herd, thou thinks it's going too big and bare now, but thou will like it. "Do you?" inquired Mary. "Aye, that I do," answered Martha, cheerfully polished it away at the grate. "I just love it. It's non-bare. It's covered with well-growing things. It smells sweet. It's fair, lovely in spring and summer, and the gorse and bloom and hazard and flowers. It smells of honey, and there's such a lot of fresh air. And the sky looks so high, and the bees and skylarks marks such a noise, human and singing. I would like away from the door more for anything." Mary listened for her with a grave, puzzled expression. The native servants she had been used in India were not at least like this. They were obsequious, and so did not presume to talk like to their master. And if they were equals, they made the salams and called them protectors of the poor and the name that sort. And their servants were commanded to do things, not ask. It was not accustomed to say please and thank you, and Mary had always slapped her iron on the face. And when she was angry, she wondered a little what this girl would do if one slapped her in the face. She was round, rosy, good-natured looking creature, but she had a way which made Mistress Mary wonder if she might not even slap back. If the person who slapped her was only a little girl. "You are a strange servant," she said from her pillow, rather haughtily. Martha sat on her heels with a blacking brush in her hand and laughed without seeming at least out of temper. "I know that," she said. "If there was a grand monsieur at Mr. Waite's, I should never have been one of them under the housemaid. It might have been let a security maid, but I've never been let upstairs. I am too common and talk too much your side. But the funny house is so grand. Seems like there's neither master nor mistress except Mr. Pitcher and Mrs. Medlock. Mr. Craven, he won't be troubled anything when he here, and he nearly always away. Mrs. Medlock gave me out of her our old kindness. She told me she could never have done if Mr. Waite had been like another big house." "Are you going to be my servant?" Mary asked, still in an impersonal little Indian way. Martha began to rub her grate again. "I'm Mrs. Medlock's servant," she said stoutly, "and she's Mr. Craven. But I'm to do the housemaid work up here and wait on your bed." But you don't need much wetting on. Who's going to dress me? Demanded Mary. Martha set up her heels again and stared. She spoke aboard your side with amazement. Cannot that dress Dyson? She asked. What do you mean? I don't understand your language, said Mary. I forgot, Martha said. Mrs. Medlock told me I'd have to be careful or you won't know what I'm saying. I mean, can't you put on your own clothes? No, answered Mary, quite intelligent. I never did in my life. My aunt dressed me, of course. Well, said Martha, evidently not in the least aware that she was imprudent. It's time that she learned that cannot begin younger. It's the they go to write Dyson a bit. My mother always said she couldn't see why grand people's children didn't turn out fair fools. What with nurses and being washed, undresses, and took out to the walk as if they were puppies. It's different in India, said Mistress Mary disdainfully. She could scarcely stand this. I can see the difference, she answered almost sympathetically. I dare say because they're such a lot of black. They're instead all respectable white people. When I heard you come in from India, I thought you was a black too. Mary sat up furious. What? She says. What? You thought I was native? You daughter pig. Martha stared and looked hot. What are you calling names? She said. You need to be so vexed. That's not the way young lady to talk. I've nothing against the black. When you read about trucks, they will always be very religious. You always read as a black, a man, and a brother. And I'll never see a black and it was fair. Pleasant to think I'm going to see one close. When was a fair? When I come to the light of fire in the morning, I creep up into your bed at the cover back, carefully to look at you. And there was, disappointingly, no more black than me. For all, you were so yellow. Mary did not even try to hold her rage and humiliation. You thought I was native? You dared. You don't know anything about native. They are not people. They are not servants. They are slam you. You know nothing about India. You know nothing about anything. She's such a rage and felt hopeless before the girl simply stared. And somehow she suddenly felt so horrible, lonely, and far away from everything. She understood which understood her, that she threw herself face downward on the pillows and burst into fascinating sobbing. She sobbed so unrestrainedly that good-natured your side Martha was a little frightened and quite sorry for her. She went to bed and bent over her. Hey, you mustn't cry that there, she begged. You mustn't for sure. I didn't know you'd be vexed. I don't know anything about anything. Just like you said. I beg your pardon, miss. Do stop crying. There was something comfortable, really friendly, queer your side speech of study, which way had good effect on Mary. She gradually decreases, crying, become quiet. Martha looked relieved. It's time for thee to get up now, she said. Mrs. Medlock and I carried the breakfast and tea and dinner into the room next to this. I've been in the nursery for thee. I'll help thee with on thee clothes if thou get out of bed. If the button on the black thou cannot button them up thyself. When Mary at last decided to get up, the clothes Mother took from the wardrobe was not one of these she had worn arrived at the night when Mrs. Medlock "Those are not mine," she said. "Mine are black." She looked at thick white wool coat and dressed over, and Dad added to the cool approval. "Whose are nicer than me?" "Mine. These are one thou must put on," Martha answered. "Mr. Craven ordered Mrs. Medlock to get 'em in London. He said I won't have children to dress in black one day in a lost soul. He said I like to play sadder than it is. Put color on her muzzle." She said she knew what he meant. Muzzle will always nobody means. She wouldn't go with black herself. "I hate black things," said Mary. Dresses progress was one of the taught them with both something. Martha had buttoned it up, her little sister and brothers, but she had never seen a child who stood still and waited for another person to do things for her, as if she was neither hand nor feet or her own. "Why doesn't Cat put on her own shoes?" she said, when Mary quietly held out her foot. "My aunt did it," answered Mary, staring. "It was a custom." She said it very often. It was custom. The native servant was always saying it. If one of them told to do things their ancestors had not done for 1,000 years, they gasped at one minute and said, "It is custom," and one knew that must matter. It has not been always been the custom that Mistress Mary would do anything but stand and allow herself to dress like a doll. But before she got ready for breakfast, she began to subtract that her life at Mistress Manor would end by teaching her numbers, a thing quite new to her, things such as putting on her own shoes and stockings and picking up things she let fall. If Martha had been well-trained, fine young lady maid, she would have been more submissive and respectful too, and would have known that it was her business to wash her hands and button boots. Here's the picture. "And pick up things and lay them away," she said. However, only an untrained Yorkshire rustic who had been brought up in the moorland cottage with a swarm of little brothers and sisters who had never dreamed of doing anything but waited on themselves and on the younger ones who were either babies in arms or just learning toddler about tumbling over things. If Mary Lennox had been a child who was already amused, she would perhaps have laughed at Martha's readiness to talk. But Mary only listened to her coldly and wondered if the freedom would matter. At first, she was not at all interested, but gradually, as a girl, she rather on it and good-tempered, homely way. Mary began to notice what she was saying. "Ah, you could see 'em all," she said. "There was 12 of us, and my father only gets 16 dwelling a week. I can tell you my mother put on potato porridge for them all. They tumble about the moor to play all day. And Mother says there's more fattens, and she says she believes they eat the grass same as the wild ponies do. Our Deacon, he's 12 years old and he got a young pony. He calls it own." "Where did he get it?" asked Mary. "He found it on the moor with its mother's when it was a little one. And he began to make friends with it and gave it a little oat bread and plucked young grasses for it. And it got to like him, so followed him about, at least let him to get on the back. Dickens, a kind lad animal like him." Well, in the next video, I'm going to read you The Secret Garden, Chapter 4, Part 2, because it's kind of long, so thank you for listening and goodbye.